If you have ever worked in Australia, you are probably aware of super or superannuation. But what exactly is super? Why does it exist? And most importantly, why should you care? I will cover these topics in this video, so stay tuned. G'day viewers, this is your Money Friend, a channel where I discuss everything finance for an Australian audience. As a disclaimer, nothing discussed in this video is financial advice. Seriously, do not take financial advice from a video you found on the internet. If you do, however, need financial advice, go get professional help. Also, this video is intended for a mature audience only. If you are under the age of 13, please stop watching this video now. So, what exactly is super or superannuation? To put it simply, superannuation is your money. But this money is going to be locked away and you don't get access to it until you meet certain conditions. There are roughly 10 different conditions in total, and legally, these are known as superannuation conditions of release. The most common condition of release to access your own super is retirement after reaching preservation age. Okay, so here's how it works. This guy here, he is your boss. Every time you work for him, he owes you money. He has to pay the money he owes you into one of these two buckets. The bucket on the left represents your bank account and the bucket on the right represents your super. At the time of recording, he has to pay a minimum of 9.5% of your salary into your super bucket. This minimum is proposed to increase to 12% by the year 2025. The rest of your salary, he typically pays it into your bank account where you get to spend it. Now, you are probably wondering why does superannuation exist at all, and why did the Australian government suddenly make superannuation compulsory back in 1991? Thankfully, the Treasury answered this question in 2016. And yeah, it actually took them 25 years to figure it out. So, according to the Treasury, the purpose of superannuation is to provide income in retirement and to substitute or supplement the age pension. For all you viewers who joined the workforce after 1991, you are probably thinking, what was that? Substitute or supplement the age pension? Does that mean my age pension is in jeopardy? I pay taxes. The age pension is meant to be a way for me to get some of that money back. Sort of like a thank you allowance from the government for being a contributing member of society. Why are they changing it now? Why do I have to fund my own retirement? None of the previous generation had to do so. This is not fair. The government hates me. Of course, you are justified to make that conclusion, but believe it or not, the government did not introduce superannuation because they hate you. To understand their real reasoning, we need to go back in time and have a look at three groups of Australians from three different generations. Our first group, let's call them the settlers. This is someone who was born in the mid-1840s. Why are we even bothering looking at a group of Aussies from over 170 years ago? Well, the age pension was first introduced in 1908, which means the very first Aussies to benefit from the original age pension would have been born during this particular time. A shout out to Edmund Barton, Australia's very first Prime Minister. He was born during this particular time. To put things into perspective of what life was like for our Eddie, he would have grown up during the gold rush. In his 30s, he would have been reading about Ned Kelly in the newspaper. And he probably had a midlife crisis by the time Banjo Paterson wrote Waltzing Matilda. Most Aussies born during this time were either labourers or farmers. Typically, they had little to no schooling. They started work early at age 15. They worked until age 65 and died at age 67. Yeah, back then life expectancy sucked. Graphically, on a timeline, it looks something like this. On the x-axis, we have the person's age in years. The blue box represents the youth stage or the growing up stage. For our settler, even during this tentative stage, a lot of their children would have been following and observing an adult or a mentor who would usually coach them towards a particular trade or profession. The big orange box represents the working stage.
a stage where our settler is working and are actively contributing towards society. And finally, the grey box represents the retirement stage. The number of years written inside of each box represent how long they spent in that particular stage. So, for our settler, the first 14 years of their life is in the youth stage. On their 15th birthday, the majority of them would have begun their working stages, which lasted for roughly about 50 years. And finally, concluding with 2 years in the retirement stage before their life expectancy runs out.
Our second group, the baby boomers. This is someone who was born between 1946 and 1964. Currently, baby boomers represent roughly over 20% of Australia's total population. Since 2011, these boomers had already started to retire, which means over the next decade or so, 1 in 5 Australians will reach the qualifying age for the age pension, which also means the Australian government is going to lose a significant source of taxpayers forever. Baby boomers, they typically had fairly basic education. Most of them started work right out of high school, so they entered the workforce at age 18, worked until age 65, and they have a life expectancy to live to age 82. Graphically, on a timeline, it looks something like this. Our third and final group, let's call them the millennials. They pretty much represent anyone who joined the workforce after super became compulsory in 1991. The majority of millennials, they went to university after graduating from high school, which means they entered the workforce much later, usually around the age of 22. They also retire later at age 67 instead of 65. This is not by choice or volition, but because the age pension age has been shifted backwards by 2 years, and they have a life expectancy of 94 years. Graphically, it looks something like this. If we put these groups together, we can make the following 2 observations. Number 1, we are living longer, and number 2, we're starting work later. For the settlers, when the age pension was first introduced, they would have paid around 50 years worth of taxes, but only received 2 years worth of pension before they were expected to have carket. For the baby boomers, they would have paid around 47 years worth of taxes and are expected to receive 17 years worth of pension. And finally, for the millennials, assuming things stay the same, they are expected to pay around 45 years worth of taxes and will be expected to receive 27 years worth of pension. Getting the picture yet? If we just consider a typical millennial as an example, and let us assume this millennial started work right out of uni at age 22, earned a median income of $65,000 a year, retired by age 67, and dies at age 94. Mathematically, in his lifetime, this millennial would have paid around $580,000 worth of taxes, but will be expected to receive $600,000 worth of pension payments. As you can see, this is economically unsustainable, and this is the reason why the government introduced superannuation back in 1991. And finally, why should you care about your own super? I really hope it's rhetorical by now. Superannuation is your own money. If you don't care about your own money, then no one else will. As discussed earlier, our age pension system in its current form is economically unsustainable. Consequently, Australia is slowly shifting away from a state-funded retirement to a self-funded retirement. Our superannuation system was specifically designed and introduced to work together with the age pension system to make it sustainable. And in the government's own words, to substitute or supplement the age pension. Further, because most Australians are forced to contribute a minimum of 9.5% of every paycheck we receive into our super is going to be either our largest or our second largest asset by the time we retire. Usually for most Australians, the 2 largest retirement assets are either our superannuation or our family home. So in conclusion, you should care about your own. If you have any questions or would like me to cover a specific topic, please tell me in the comment section. And finally, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, please share, like, and subscribe. Thank you.